You are wealthier than a medieval prince. Excuse me? So, okay, everyone has heard this particular old canard. The average person today is richer than the royalty of the past all throughout history. Okay, well, then why is it that my wages don't actually buy anything that I actually need? Sure, I can get greasy food, poisonous plastic toys that I don't want, and I can buy pesticide-covered weed, but I spend more than half my money on rent so that I can live with roommates in a molded-out, rusted-down, tiny little coffin near a busy intersection where I constantly hear sirens and gunshots. I stand absolutely zero chance of ever owning my own home, and I cannot afford college, which is exactly what I would need in order to ever possibly get a higher paying job. And when I have medical problems, and I have medical problems, I can't afford that either. Are plastic bobbleheads something that makes me wealthier than a king? Someone explain this to me. Make it make sense. Whoever told you that is wrong. Sure, we have access to certain resources and technologies that medieval royalty could only dream of. But they also had total rule over their nations and owned massive amounts of land. Really, it's a pointless comparison. You work 40 hours a week. A medieval prince worked 0 hours a week. Who is actually wealthy here? Wealth doesn't mean shiny baubles and a pile of plastic clothing. The fact that I have a microwave doesn't make up for the fact that I have less leisure time than a medieval peasant. That even isn't remotely true, especially considering all the land, gold, and people old nobility owned. LMAO, whoever said that has never heard of Mansa Musa. The idea that the average person is wealthier than a medieval price is idiotic. Like, yes, as a whole we have more technological gadgets, longer lifespans, etc. But comparing wealth across vastly different time periods based upon the things that are available to them is just, well, dumb. Wealth-wise, we are obviously more akin to peasants, as what we have available to us in terms of wealth is similarly proportional to what they had in their time, except not quite, because they had more free time. Not sure if it will help, but I think the original comparison was related to some very specific things like the spices and easy access to salt we have in modern times compared to then. So it wasn't referring to bobbleheads and baubles but sugar, spices and salt. We're also way more overworked than the average medieval peasant, slave. Pointless comparison. Because even if the quantity of money is more, its purchasing power is less. How much money you have doesn't matter. What matters is how much you can use of that money. In those times, the prince could easily afford to live in a giant palace because he was the richest in the kingdom. Today, even if you got more money than the prince, you can't afford basic housing because of extremely high pricing. If they are comparing our wealth today with then prince wealth, owning a house today is like owning a whole continent then. Back then, they used to conquer land with force. Today we are at the mercy of the rich and the state for land ownership. We don't even own lands. Oh yeah? How many hours per day did they have to toil in order to stay alive? That's the only true measure of wealth. Our lives are all we really have. In some ways of material wealth you certainly are. You have access to more varied food of decent quality, better healthcare and vastly better transportation and etc. What you don't have is the wealth of power and leisure time that a medieval prince had at the expense of his household and military staff. I'll be honest with you. I've never heard anyone make a claim that average people are wealthier than royalty of old. And if I did, I'd laugh in their face. In many ways we do have more luxuries than some royals did, but the reason King Richard didn't have running water, clean sheets, or the ability to travel to the other side of the planet for a vacation each year was not due to his ability to afford it. We may also have more things and have fewer deadly things to worry about than the average person did 300, 600 and more years ago. But we do also work more, and the gap between us and the ultra-wealthy has never been larger. It is irrelevant how wealthy we are compared to medieval princes. That would be analogous to telling a black person in the US that he likely lives better than black people in Africa. So what? That American black person very likely lives worse in their own country than a white person only because of skin color. The fact that he is doing better than someone in Togo or Malawi is cold comfort when he is racially profiled by a cop for the 170th time. So this is a related bait and switch so that people don't compare and contrast the vast wealth inequality that is the reality today. These are people who think that our fiat currency has the same value as precious metals and gems. It's worthless paper and common, low-value metals. Medieval princes could buy servants, castles, vast quantities of land, in the hundreds or even thousands of square miles, including all the cities, towns, and villages on that land, plus all resource rights to said land, including all plants, all animals, and even the people of those lands. I don't think any of us have the level of wealth necessary to purchase sovereign territory. Greasy food is overly expensive now too. Barely surviving on home cooking LMAO. It's a lie, and we shouldn't compare ourselves to the tiny minority of human generations spent as sedentary agriculturalists. We should compare our social and individual states to foragers whom we actually evolved as. A medieval prince boned more women than a standard frat house over a year. I haven't heard that one. Thankfully. I did read something about how a peasant had more free time and freedom, or something, than us in our civilized age. Though, this was the exact argument that Henry George was making in Progress and Poverty. Kinda funny that it's been over 100 years and a lot of the arguments for people living in poverty, having it better than the people before us, are about the same. It is also just fundamentally untrue in any sense. Their wealth was in things like gold and land, and those haven't depreciated in value. They're trying to take the people used to make less in a week than you make in an hour thing, and extrapolate it back much further, which doesn't work, and apply it to the rich, which also doesn't work.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.